Hello everyone, welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda Williams, and if this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the community. I just want to let all of you know that you can access all previous shows in the archives here on blogtalkradio.com/Reiki Radio, or you can subscribe to the free podcast on iTunes, and it's also listed under Reiki Radio. So welcome. I'm really happy to be here with you today. And before we get started, I just want to remind all of you to sign up for my newsletter at yewchi.com. That's YEWCHI.com. And this month is all about releasing any agreements to live small. Now, I'm not talking about in a material sense, but more about letting go of self-imposed restrictions, which may have kept you from living in your full expression. Now, what's really interesting is that sometimes we stay small to feel loved or accepted, or out of fear of actually being seen, which is usually done out of fear of being judged or criticized. But regardless of why you may be keeping yourself from living in your full expression, now is the time to work through this and allow transformation of those energies. So we have a lot of support in that throughout this month of September. So right now we are in the energy of Virgo, and this sign supports us in creating a clear plan of action for the journey ahead. And then we are ending this month with a full supermoon in Aries, which also supports us in letting go of old conditioning and living in alignment with our own passions and desires. So, there is some powerful stuff flowing through the cosmos. But again, you can get more information about this in my newsletter. So you can just hop over to yewchi.com and sign up, and it's absolutely free. Okay, so today we are going to explore our attachment to fear and how to disconnect from this energy. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because it's so important, because our fears are what keep us outside of truth. And fear keeps us small and restricted, and it disturbs our flow of energy. And like I just mentioned, this month is a great time to work through some of this. So first I want to point out that we're not talking about primal instinct, okay? So just as an example, if you were in the woods and approached by a snake. Now, if you are a person who is afraid of snakes, your instinct would go into overdrive and your adrenaline would rush, and although we may identify this as fear, our instinct is more of acute awareness. You automatically snap out of being unaware and more into like a super heightened awareness. Your body responds, your mind becomes clear, and you have two choices. So at that point, you can either move out of your analyzer and up into your intuitive knowing, and somehow you're just guided, or you can stay in analytical mode in your stories, in your fears, and this often happens because we feel like our back is against the wall, so to speak, and then you may react out of fear. Now, if you allow yourself to be intuitively guided, you will most likely respond in a way that surprises you in the end, right? You hear so many stories of people who survived very compromising situations, and several of them say they have no idea what drove them to respond in the way they did. Well, when you make that shift into intuitive guidance, it's like being in a zone. You are above the limitation of this perceived reality, and you move beyond any concept of what would be restrictive. You move into a heightened awareness. Okay, so back to the snake. Now, if we had a different scenario, There are people who absolutely love snakes. They have no fear of them, and they may respond much differently than someone who has a great fear of them. Now, why is that? It's still a snake, right? But fear is a program or an agreement that we have attached ourselves to in relation to various things. Meanwhile, there are people who have not agreed to the same fears. So in this, you can see that fear is a conditioning or an agreement. Again, it's different than our primal instinct, although we've associated and categorized the feeling of instinct with fear. And that's only because the chemical responsiveness in the body is so similar, and our analytical minds don't recognize the difference, but they're not the same. So our instinct, again, it's primal, it's inherent. Whereas fear is a condition that we have agreed to either because, you may have been taught to fear something, or through your past experience. You may have created an emotional trigger or attachment to something that you were shocked or traumatized by. Okay, so fear, like everything else, is an energy. It is chaotic and it causes anxiety, right? And it moves us out of clarity. It can even be very debilitating and literally cause us to avoid taking action or cause us not to want to create. Now think about this. How can you live fully without taking action and creating? Fear is really immobilizing. It tells us that we're not capable. Now, again, I'm not talking about making irrational decisions. There are some things we will avoid because of consequence, and although you may not like the consequence, you don't have to be in fear of it in order to avoid it. This is about the fear that keeps us from believing in ourselves, or the fear that keeps us outside of truth. And again, because we're focusing on living much bigger and living in our full expression this month, we're talking about those fears that keep us small and keep us hidden. Okay, so I want you to consider something that you wanted to try. It could be something that you wanted to do, but you didn't because you were in fear. And not necessarily, something that we would call, again, a rational decision, but you were in fear. Perhaps it was fear of being judged, or the fear of being wrong, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being seen or not seen, or the fear of not knowing the right way to handle something. So what is that you didn't do out of fear? Okay, so now if you're not driving, I want you to take a second and close your eyes. And just go ahead and focus in on your breath and start to relax into your body. And you're going to inhale some new revitalizing life force energy, waking up your senses. Feel that energy moving through you, down your arms and your legs, opening your chakras. And then as you exhale, I want you to let your shoulders fall, releasing any tension. Okay, now I want you to think about something you really want to explore, but you haven't allowed yourself because you're afraid of not being good enough or afraid of being judged. Something that you're afraid of because of your own story, your own fear. What is it you haven't tried or or not doing. Now I want you to be very honest with yourself and tell yourself, what is this fear and why are you clinging to it? Why are you holding on to this fear? What is your story around this? And now I want you to ask yourself why you have agreed to be in fear around this. Okay, now with your eyes still closed, I want you to see or feel the experience of trying whatever this is. What if you actually tried? Whether it's learning something new, having a new experience, meeting new people, being honest, whatever it is. Now, I want you to notice where you feel any constriction in your body. Where do you feel this energy? Where does it feel uncomfortable within your being? Notice where this fear is showing up and how it feels. Okay, now I want you to really focus in on wherever you're feeling this fear energy. And I want you to give yourself permission to deactivate the emotion attached to this fear. Why are you holding on to it? Go ahead and detach, deactivate it. Is there any shame, guilt, or regret attached to this energy? Allow yourself to release these energetic ties from the fear. Just keep releasing, keep detaching. Your emotion and your story bind you to the fear. So I want you to see these energies begin to pop and explode. Just allow it to dissolve into nothing. Just let it release. And notice if you feel lighter. If that energy feels smaller. What would it take to completely let it go? And now I want you to take a breath. Release that and invite in some love. So I want you to feel your heart chakra in the very center of your chest. Bring your awareness there and start to feel it activate. Breathe into that space and feel your heart begin to open and expand, filling up with love. And you can do this just by saying love over and over in your mind. And feel that love coming in. Just let love, the vibration of that word, echo throughout your entire being. Feel love grow and expand in your heart and feel it start to move down your arms, your legs, your back. Breathe it up into your head, down into your feet. Filling in the space where you just released the fear. Allow a lot of love into that space. If you have any energy of judgment attached to this, go ahead and release and allow yourself to deactivate that feeling of judgment, any self-criticism. Let it go. See those energies explode. And allow some love to flow in, filling in that space, transforming those energies. And then as you breathe, I want you to see, feel, or sense your entire being fill up with love and begin to radiate love. Feel it flowing through your pores and completely surrounding you. Notice what this feels like. Feel your energy shifting. And then when you're ready, I want you to stretch your arms nice and big. Really stretch. And then gently open your eyes. And if you have some water near you, you may want to take a sip of water to help you ground. Okay, now after this podcast, I want you to revisit whatever came up for you and notice if it feels different. If you're able to think about this thing that you were in fear of, notice if it feels any different now when you think about it. And if you're able to make your decision outside of fear and based on whatever is absolutely true for you, letting go of that story. Now, when we're able to transform our energies, releasing ourselves from the programming or agreements to be in fear, we move into clarity of mind, which then prompts us to following our instinct or our intuition, which are our natural gifts of guidance. Do you want to be guided by your fear or guided by your instinct and intuition? Now, I have personally done a lot of work on releasing my own fears, which I've talked to you about before, and that's actually what led me to doing this radio show. And I continue to work on it, which in turn leads me to share with you in more ways than I have in the past. And more recently, I've been guided to blend my intuitive work with my energy work. Now, this is separate from Reiki, but I still practice Reiki too. But this is a process of recoding and transforming the energies we hold in our field with focus on the aura, and I call it aura coding. Now, I've worked with people using this technique one-to-one and in groups, but I'm hosting the first public group session in a few weeks, and I would love to have you join us. So it's going to be a 2-day event, and the first session will be held on September 27th, which is also the full moon in Aries. And of course, we're going to tap into those energies to heighten our clearing and releasing and connect with our intuitive knowing. And then the second day of the event will be on September 29th. Now, as many of you know, I teach intuitive development, and I get a lot of emails from people with questions about their intuitive abilities. And what I found is that the most common blocks are all surrounding our fears. So, in this 2-part event, I'm going to guide you through a process specific to unlocking your intuition and your intuitive gifts. And there are over 20 specific blocks that I will help you work on, plus whatever other blocks I read intuitively from the people who attend. So it should be very interesting. And if you want to join us, you can just go to my website, which is yewchi.com. That's YEWCHI.com. And on the home page, you can scroll down and you'll see information for the event. It's called Unlocking Intuition. One thing I want to point out is that since I will be connecting intuitively with everyone who attends, the space for this event is going to be limited. So be sure to sign up today if you're ready to release some of your fears around being psychic or intuitive. And that's it. That's all for today. And I thank you so much for joining me here on Reiki Radio. I hope that you have a beautiful day. And remember to always journey in love.